Typically, project timeline might go around 6 to 12 months. Our longest one, we always say, took about 10 years from
10
finding out
years?
about
Oh my
the
gosh.
project to the actual delivery
Wow.
and installation of it.
Hi, I'm Josh Owen. As the owner of a video marketing company in New Orleans, I've been on the quest to learn everything I can about marketing. Everyone has a different style, different strategy, and a different experience. Is there a wrong way to do it? A right way to do it? Let's find out together as we make marketing make sense. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. I'm your host, Josh, with Comfystone, and today I'm joined by Caroline at AOS. Thanks for joining me, Caroline.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure
awesome.
to be here.
100%. And so today we're going to talk all about client management and how you keep them together. And basically, I know you're the marketing in that department, and a lot of it comes through with AOS, a lot of long-term sales processes. So, tell me a little bit about, what AOS is and a short little synopsis of what AOS is and what your, approach to it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So AOS is what you would consider a FF&E contractor or a design assist partner. FF&E stands for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So if you think you take a building and you just flipped it upside down and shook it, everything that would fall out would fall into kind of your FF&E
Wow,
scope.
you got that perfectly down. That's an elevator pitch right there. I'll tell you what. Yeah.
So if you were a business and you're about to embark on building out a new office or a new entertainment space or a stadium or any commercial space, you are going to engage an architect, a designer, a general contractor, and usually an FF&E partner.
Gotcha.
So we really operate as kind of the conduit from that design to the entire commercial marketplace that exists. We do that within furniture. So we do commercial furnishings. We have a manufactured interior construction division. So we're actually we are the leader in this market on technology-driven interior construction. We have specialized storage, and then all three of those divisions are supported by our fourth, which is going to be your operations, is what we call that, but it's really warehouse, delivery, and installation. So we at AOS, one of our big differentiators is the fact that not only are we helping you translate your design, go through that order placement process, get the manufacturing going and getting that back, is we are also receiving, handling everything, and then we have all in-house installation and delivery. Because as you might imagine, most construction projects do not go exactly as planned. So
this is what I've heard.
It's quite a bit of risk management
creative ingenuity
built
going
into
on.
making sure that we can hold back that major investment you just made in furnishings until your job site is actually ready to receive those.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. Oh, well, I was going to say, so a big part of that is, you obviously, like you said, client relationships, these projects are going long distances, so you have to not only, big projects, long distances, how do you start to develop a relationship with a client that could be, someone that you do we're talking like a huge investment.
Absolutely. Typically project timeline might go around 6 to 12 months when we're getting engaged, especially on the furnishing side. A little bit earlier if we're engaged on the construction side. Sometimes projects, our longest one, we always say, took about 10 years from
10
finding out
years?
about
Oh my
the
gosh.
project to the actual delivery and installation of it. So yes, there is an immense amount of trust that has to be developed to go through that, to pick a partner, to really work with that partner.
Yeah.
The other really significant part of our business and our client relationship approach is understanding how many stakeholders exist on a project. So, within your client alone, you're going to have your owner and your major decision makers, and that might be a single owner or partners, a board. You're also going to have the employees that are going to be living, working, existing within that space. You may have investors that are involved in that. You then also have the people that influence those decision makers.
Oh my goodness.
We've even had spouses sitting in rooms
Oh my goodness.
contributing.
The list goes on and on. Is the dog in there too?
And that is just the client themselves, because you also have the architect, you have the interior designer, you have the general contractor, you're going to have subs that are engaged. And that's before we even get involved or brought to the table. And then we have manufacturers that we're working with. We have consultants, we have the logistics teams and the installation. So really navigating all of that, those are a lot of influences. It's a lot of information for a client to process. It's oftentimes that a client is not going to build out a new space every year. Right. When they're making that investment, for some businesses, that's something that they may only do once in their business life cycle. Or they may be creating a standard, and that is their business to create. For a bank, it might be to continue creating branches and things like that. So for us, the foundation starts with a lot of listening and a lot of understanding and coming to the table and getting to know what are those business drivers. What does the client see as project success? It might be really focused on aesthetic and brand and defining that, and that is what in our industry we call the form. It might be the function. That space really has to help the business collaborate better. It needs to create their own client experience when people come in. It needs to support learning and education environments. It needs to support health and wellness in a hospital environment. And so you need to understand that. And then everything comes down to budget. So there's the financial drivers within that. And how people want to break up that budget is really, it's really different. It's all based on the nuances of the project. So we start with ears open. And really getting to know who are those stakeholders, and what is project success, and how does the client define that? And then it's about utilizing our resources, and we put a lot of investment in that. Everything from technology that helps you visualize space. Most of us are not trained to look at a 2D drawing and be able to picture this incredible podcast studio when we were sketching it out on a box, right? It's not until you're in that space that you can truly feel that. So we've put heavy investment into things like virtual reality walkthroughs, creating renderings, fly-throughs. And all of that is so that people are all thinking the same thing when they get in the room. We're able to make agreements. And get a consensus together, and the client really understands what's going to be delivered to them, because the decisions that are made up front, if you can hone in on those, that saves you significant time and investment once you get into the construction process itself, because those become much more costly
I can only
changes
imagine.
when you get to that
crazy,
point.
Is it because you're telling them like all this stuff? Like, I guess, like, how does the relationship start? Because like these all sound like great things, But how do you like get that relationship started with them? Like, what do you like do to kind of you said you identify these stakeholders and the proper people? Like, what do you start to do? What are the actionable things you do with them?
So we learn about projects through all these different channels. Our end user clients are the ones that are going to live within that space, but we also consider architects and designers and contractors all our clients as well. Not only have we oftentimes worked on their own offices, but they're the ones that are repeatedly coming back to us and bringing more work over and over again. So when we say clients at AOS, clients is a very big sphere.
Anyone could be a client.
Anyone
I might be
could
a client.
Be a client. You actually could be. So there's a lot of different routes that these projects come together. Or we may have a close relationship with the owner, and then they're asking us for, recommendations on clients, on an architect or a designer or anybody across that. So we find out that a project, I'll just back it up into that point. We find out that somebody is looking to build out a new office space. And the next thing that we're going to do is really encourage that they come in and meet with us. And so in that first meeting, it's all about learning those drivers. What are you trying to achieve? How can we support this? Is this a project where you're just looking for some furnishings, or is this a project where you're trying to build out a space in a quick timeline, and manufactured construction might be the perfect solution for that? So we really start with what their needs are. We highly encourage interview processes. We're like, you're getting into a partnership that, as we said, could be 6 to 12 months, but it might be a 10-year partnership. And in what we do, we'll also be your service provider long after that. So a lot of commercial furnishings warranties are a big part of that investment, and we're the ones executing that. So we're big believers in that we're starting a relationship. And so there's a getting to know you process. We do that through, more traditional routes like presentations and proposals and presenting that. But we're also big believers in showing you the work that we've done and letting you hear what it's like to work with us through our other clients. So we'll go on job site tours, take people through, and really help provide a lot of resources as they're going through that initial design process as well.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's once you lock them in with all this great stuff, and you're knocking them out. What happens? I mean, I loved what you were talking about earlier about how you have these different, everybody can be your client. Like the architect can keep coming back. So do you have like a way to like manage all these relationships that you keep in your pipeline, I guess?
Yeah. Well, you've never locked somebody in. That's a mindset that I wholeheartedly believe in. At any point, they can choose to go with another FF&E partner. They could change routes and things like that. So you need to constantly be supporting and communicating and fostering that process. Once we are engaged, once their contracts start to get signed and they're starting to go through that decision-making process, it's constant communication. It's providing a lot of different options and being very agile to adapting to what those needs might be. Project scopes shift and change all the way until, that actual final walkthrough. Because there are a lot of unknowns when you're going into a construction process. As well. So, if you've ever renovated a home or...
Haven't yet, but I hear about it. I hear it all the time. It sounds like
you never know what happens when you open the walls. You never know it's going to be there as much as we try very hard to know what we're getting into before you break ground. And then somebody shifts and then somebody new gets hired. And so you're constantly fostering and developing that relationship. And so an approach we have too is that... we have a lot of formal meetings and design meetings, aspects like that. But we're also trying to stay close to the client throughout that process, taking them to lunches, bringing them to events, inviting them to lunch and learns that we might be hosting if there's a speaker that's going to be speaking to the process that they're going through at any given time. So like any relationship, it's going to be... leaning into a lot of FaceTime, to really getting to know that person, or that project team, to providing those resources, and then being very, very adaptable to change. And that's all part of the service. You'll probably have heard I haven't really mentioned any specific product yet, because that in our world is really not the differentiator. I mean, there are seemingly infinite, but we work with 400 different furniture manufacturers alone.
Wow. Okay.
Because
that's a lot of furniture out there.
Every client, and especially in design, you want to make that unique. And so you want a lot of different options to choose from. And we're constantly adding new manufacturers come online, and they've got new R&D, and they're creating new products that solve for problems that didn't exist 5 years ago. And so, and if you go to a competitor of ours, you're going to get a pretty similar look at the end, because they have access to a lot of those same manufacturers.
Interesting.
The difference is who is working with you through that process. It's the service that we are providing at every step of the way. It is that expertise. It's that collective knowledge that we have with our very tenured team. It's our relationships with our manufacturers that we can lean on to make sure you're getting the best service and pricing and everything out of them.
Yeah.
It's making sure that we're really leveraging all of the assets that we have built in our business over the last 47 years
Right.
to make sure that we are bringing you, the smoothest process in one that most clients have not experienced before.
Right. I mean, well, all of that too, when you're summing all that up, talking about how important it is, because I love what you just said about how, the products are pretty much the same. Like everyone's got that product, but like what you have over that is the way to implement that product, but also the way to keep them insured that that's the right thing. Because when you talk about like bringing them to lunches or all these different things and like trying to like just be social with your clients, do you ever get like, because I always get a little self-conscious, like, I don't know, I don't want them to think like I'm like trying too hard here to be like their best friend or something, but do you ever get self-conscious about that? Or are you like, how often do you try and like hang out with them just to like connect with them? Like, do you think that's important?
I think that depends on the client as well.
Okay.
So, and let's see, how would I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I was getting at that point is, that's the other point of connection beyond just a transactional relationship.
Right.
So there is a transaction that's going to happen. You are eventually going to place an order with us. And we're going to put that through, and then we're going to install it, and then we're going to bill you for that because that's how
these things work.
Yeah, of course. And so there is that process that's going on. There are also other opportunities with us to continue to connect with our clients. So there's kind of that social, that more relaxed area in which you can develop your client relationships and continue to foster those. You're going to get very different feedback if you're sitting at a lunch and you're asking how the process is going and you're kind of, or what questions do they still have? Or, hey, we were just in that big room design meeting and you seemed hesitant to make a call on this. Is there, so you want to stay close. You want to keep getting that cycle of feedback that's happening through them.
Right.
There's also those moments, you might have those formal meetings, but you might be constantly just checking in on the job site. We get a lot of really valuable information about both the client experience, but also seeing things that nobody remembered to bring up in that project check-in meeting when you're just walking the site. So we really lean into a lot of high visibility with our clients. And then really keeping that hat on throughout the entire process of how can I continue to enhance their experience? Here's a great example of that. I'll give you some
I love an example.
examples.
Oh, here we go. This is good. All right, what we got?
Yeah, from the marketing side.
Yeah.
When we get towards the end of a project, we're big on project documentation because now when you're working on, we've got quite a large database at this point.
Oh, I can imagine.
Almost 50 years of business
Man,
of examples of something that of another project that had similar goals to your project that we can be able to communicate how that solution was provided and how we got there and what was that client experience that they were navigating and what were some of their challenges and how might we be able to learn those lessons and apply those to your project. So project stories are critical for us.
Right.
I'm very big on documenting that.
Yeah.
And then we're in a visual industry.
Yeah.
We're working with architecture and design. So photography. A lot of people will slip in and take a few progress shots and then they might hire a photographer at the end. I see that as a great opportunity for you to kind of give back to everybody that was at the table. So if we collaborate and coordinate with the architect and with the contractor, we can all share in those photography costs. We can all talk about like being on that shoot day is an awesome opportunity to be able to talk about the project story and where things really happen. And then we gift those photographs back to the client that they can use in their own promotions. We might split the licensing fees
Right.
for them. And that's a really unique way to celebrate, to learn some of those lessons right when they're really fresh, and then document and stockpile those for being able to use those and resources going forward in your marketing.
That's awesome. I mean, hey, we love creating content. So, you know, that's what it's all about, though, is like, it's just like a great keepsake, you know, any kind of content you can kind of create together and build together and then show for it together. I mean, you're talking about that's something that they're going to remember and they're going to keep close.
And then we do quarterly, what we call Sip and Celebrates, where we bring our internal team together. And when we've gotten some of those projects photographed, we highlight 5 to 10 of those on a Friday afternoon. Awesome. Pop some bubbles.
Okay. I was going to ask what you sipping on.
I tend to go for the champagne.
But okay, some champagne. I love it, you know.
But no, that's an incredible opportunity then for the project manager or the installation manager, the lead installer in that project, to then the business developer that might have been engaged in how that project came to be at AOS and how we got involved. And then we talk about all of those lessons learned. We talk about, you know, this manufacturer really executed well and they made this concealed damage right, or this one maybe didn't. You know, the client ran into some real issues with the core building on this project, and here's how we resolved that. So we make sure, too, that we're spreading that. That's part of that continuous improvement process.
That's awesome. Wow. Incredible. I mean, I would love to just dive in deeper and deeper and deeper on it, but we have so much time to talk on the show. So at this point, I would just love to get, you know, one thing before the actual end is if you could sum up like your approach to client, you know, relationships and keeping them built in one sentence as like advice to someone, to another, you know, another firm that's like, you know, maybe smaller, looking to like get their footing. Like, what would you say like your piece of advice would be?
One sentence is very
One
difficult.
It's your bottom line. This is the thing to focus on.
It is about them and their drivers. And if you keep those top of mind and you stay agile to executing for that and you keep your ears open, you're going to be able to provide them what they really needed. And a solution that goes well above, beyond just trying to fill your own portfolio.
Wow.
That was a lot more than one
I
sentence.
mean, there was a lot of ands, so I feel like, you know, that's the cheat game. You just keep saying and. If you keep putting and in there, the sentence ain't stopping, you know.
It's like a paragraph long run on.
No, you're good. No, that's fantastic. Well, tell everybody where they can find you guys on social, web, anywhere like that.
Yeah, absolutely. ThinkAOS.com is our URL, and then of course Instagram /ThinkAOS. And
and at a stage near you soon, you'll see those on the banner.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, we jokingly say all the time that we deal in commercial interiors to fund our passion projects, which is the arts and culture and music in New Orleans. So that drives a lot of our community engagement.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, all the more reason to keep following you guys and see what's coming out next. So thank you so much for joining us, Caroline.
Okay,
Another episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. We'll see you all in the next one. This has been Make Marketing Make Sense, brought to you by Comfystone. If you need video content for social media, your website, or email marketing, hit up Comfystone at comfystone.com and follow Comfystone on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.